So we're testing a putter from 1976.
I don't think my dad bought this in 1976. I think he got it like 94 after Nick Price won the Open with it. I think that's when a lot of people like bought them. This was originally designed in 1976. This is a zebra putter and we're testing it because they've just brought out a new one 44 years after the first one. So if I just want to see what they've done with this iconic design and if they've kind of kept those special features and if it's actually any better. Would you look at that? Someone's left us a TrackMan out so we can get some data on both of these putters. Now the big thing I want to look at here is, one, we've got about 30 foot here, so I want to see how much the ball's skidding off the putter face and how long it's taken for the ball to get to true roll, because that's going to affect if we're getting good consistent pace control or not. And I also want to see what percentage of the putt is true roll. Now it's going to be interesting to see if that varies between the two models, if I don't break them before we start. We've got quite different tech in between the two. This original one doesn't have a face insert or anything in it, whereas the new club does. So I think there could be some differences in terms of how the ball comes off the face and then also how it feels because of that. Let's start with the original one. Now, obviously this is a longer shaft than I'm used to. So the specs of this are a bit different to what I generally use, but let's see how we get on. It actually feels pretty soft off the face. I guess you would expect that if you're thinking like older, less tech, then feel is going to be a priority. So it's possibly not a surprise. Pretty consistent so far. Now generally when I'm testing putters, like what I like to see is a roll percentage probably near 90%. So that means 90% of the putt is like proper forward roll and it's not skidding loads. With this so far, we're looking at about 87%, so perhaps a little bit less, but nothing too drastic. I'm rolling this good, maybe I need to swap. Now one thing I would note though is, if you don't quite catch it out of the middle, it does feel quite a bit different and you do get quite a big jump in kind of skid distance and a drop in that true roll percentage, which is obviously not ideal. In a putter you want something that's kind of going to be the same most of the time. Bloody hell, it's a good job we're testing putters, isn't it? Not a good win for my ball flight. Now, visually, although the style of this is so similar to the last one, there are quite a few changes, most noticeably in the colour. I actually really like the fact they've made the background black rather than the grey and kind of switched it, because I think the alignment features stand out a lot more because of that. And behind the ball, there's a lot more contrast with the grass and the ball, so I think that's great. I also really like the fact they've kind of got rid of this weird thing around the hosel. I mean, obviously this was designed a long time ago. Manufacturing and engineering has jumped a lot, but this just looks a lot cleaner on the club head, especially where the shaft is kind of joining in there. Now, we also have a face insert in this as well, which is interesting because it's very different to the original model. So it's going to be interesting to see what the feel difference is like there. We do have weights in the sole, but it's not a full plate like we saw before. It's two adjustable weights on the front. I think that means we're going to see more forward roll because we've got more weight shifted towards the front of the club, which is going to promote that forward roll that we want for more consistent pace putting. Grip feels really nice. I like the shaping of it. Definitely a more comfortable length. Interesting that that's actually come off a bit softer, but I would say it felt a little bit duller off the face. Also, because we've not got that full weight plate on the sole, it does feel a little bit lighter, but overall it is really nicely balanced. Straight away that roll percentage has jumped up to 90%. And what's quite interesting is that only skid for 32 inches compared to 40 on average with the other one. So we're getting 8 extra inches of putt length where the ball is rolling true, which is going to have a massive impact on your consistency. Ugh. Gotta bloody hit it. Now you might think I'm being a little bit drastic talking about kind of these skid numbers and roll percentage, and on a fairly flat putt here you're probably going to get away with things varying a little bit, but when you start getting breaks on slopes, it's really important that you have lower skid and good roll consistency, because it's going to help you match the pace and the line of the putt. If you've got inconsistent pace all the time, it's going to be really hard to pick a start line relative to the break. It's going to make it really hard for you to hold putts with any break at all. This swings really nicely. It does sound more higher pitched than the original model. I feel like that's kind of something you see across a lot of face insert putters. Finally, to be honest, most of these have been pretty consistent so far. I think we need to move to a more slopey putt and have a look at that. There's actually quite a noticeable difference in kind of ball speed and pace control with the two of these. This, I feel, sets off quicker off the face and generally travels further. It's a lot easier to get to the hole with this, she says as she leaves it 6 inches short. But in general, it does roll out more. I think there's a big difference here in how the ball releases and kind of the speed off the putter face. For me, this newer model feels like it comes off a little bit slower, which kind of makes sense. In 1976, the greens were definitely not going to be anywhere near the speeds that we can get them up to now. So the fact this comes off the face faster and runs out more completely makes sense. But I think it's quite an interesting difference. For me, I always leave putt shorts. It's probably the biggest tendency I have. So actually having something older like this would probably help me out a bit. Now, some of that could come down to the weighting. This was innovative at its time for the fact you could take the sole out, there was adjustable weights under here, so you could really re-weight the head to make it feel how you wanted it to. Now, we do still have that in these newer models, which is something I really like that they've brought across. These sole plates you can change, you can move around, and you can make it heavier. Because I would say if I had one criticism of this, it is that it feels a little bit light, but we can go ahead and add extra weight in the bottom of that, which is great. I think for a lot of golfers, just having a little bit more weight in the head is going to help you feel where the club head is better and control your stroke more. So I think if you're interested in one of these, it really would be worth kind of trying to dial that in, make sure you're happy with how it feels, the overall weighting, and kind of just play with those and see if it does affect your pace control in any way, added extra weight in there. All right, I think I'm going to intentionally try hit some out of the toe, because I think with the different shaping and size here, and also kind of the change in weight location and the new tech, this should be better if you don't quite strike it out the middle. So I think it's worth testing it out and seeing, because for most people, upgrading their putter is going to be about like improving your bad putt. So let's have a look and see. Feels weird intentionally trying to hit it out the toe. Usually I just do it by accident, not on purpose. Well, that felt horrible. Feels really noticeably different on this, like very dull. You can feel the ball speed doesn't come off as quick. Now obviously we've only got a short putt, so it's not going to be like a massive difference in distance. But you can see how it's just not quite rolling out. Start light wasn't bad, to be fair, for how far at the toe I hit them. Obviously it hit the ball. I'm trying to see if the pace control's better. Obviously it's hit the other one. Let's move these to the side, but keep the distance. Now that feels much nicer. I mean, does it really matter how it feels though if it doesn't reach? It's definitely got nearer than one of the other ones. It's quite interesting how it feels like when I don't quite strike it right. I mean, I know I was trying to hit it out the toe then, but if you actually do that, you're getting a bit more ball speed off this. It's still releasing out, so you've got the chance it is still going to go in. I mean, maybe we should look at that on a longer putt for it to be a bit more accurate. That was close, wasn't it? Oh my god. feel like I actually struck them the same, which is weird. Obviously I need to do a longer swing because I got nowhere near the hole. Pace control's good, isn't it? I promise you, I'm literally striking them exactly the same. Like, my speed is exactly the same, and I'm getting like a good 3-4 foot extra rollout from the new model from the same place on the club face. So I think that does go to show you how much the tech has improved in terms of consistency and off-centre strikes, which is probably going to be the biggest thing you're going to swap here. But if you're someone who hits it dead out the middle every time, one, can you teach me how to do that? And two, I'm not sure if you're going to see that massive amount of distance. Two, you're probably not going to see quite as big of a difference between the two. It's more than I thought. That's like nearly 9 foot on that one. Jesus. Wouldn't be a putter review without some round the world short putts now, would it? Now I think visually the big difference here is, one, the new model feels more stable just because it's bigger, and two, we've got those colour differences on the top. Looking back at this, I don't think the alignment's quite as kind of bold and in your face and helps as much as it does when you kind of switch those colours around. So it's a really clever change they've made that helps your alignment but doesn't make the putter look massively different. Go this way, then the putter's not in the way. This is going well. Now, this is a major winning putter, so obviously it's not a bad piece of kit, but I think it has to be something that suits your eye. If you're someone who likes a smaller model, this is still going to benefit you, and it probably is still more tour inspired, whereas I think the new model gives you more tech and more help, which is probably what most golfers need. I think the biggest difference between the two for me is just comfort. This feels a lot more comfortable over the ball. I feel like it's much more likely to start on line and that I'm going to hole it more. And I think that does come down to the sizing and some of those new colour changes they've made. To be honest, this swings really nicely. I'm really impressed with the performance of this. I would say I would like it to be a bit heavier, but I know I can tweak that in the setup with those adjustable weights. I'm really impressed with the start line control and the consistency we've got here. For me, I normally always have to use a line, but I'm actually finding with these I've been pretty dang consistent without having a line on the ball at all, which is definitely quite surprising and shows you just how well those multiple lines on the top are working in terms of alignment.